Mania is a lesser-known but intriguing figure in Greek mythology, associated with madness, frenzy, and irrationality. As a personification of madness and chaotic behavior, Mania represents the darker aspects of the human psyche. Her mythological presence reflects the ancient Greeks' recognition of the destructive power of mental instability and how it could manifest in both individuals and societies. Mania is often depicted as a goddess of madness, particularly the type that leads people into violent and unpredictable actions. While she is not one of the more famous deities in the Greek pantheon, her role is significant in the context of understanding how the Greeks viewed emotional and mental extremes. Mania's influence was not limited to humans but was also understood to extend to the gods, who could be overtaken by madness or irrational thoughts, just like their mortal counterparts. The name Mania comes from the Greek word mania, which means madness or frenzy. In some versions of Greek myth, Mania is described as the mother of the two entities Phobos, fear, and Deimos, terror, both of whom are often associated with the gods of war, Ares, and Athena. This connection between Mania and the personifications of fear and terror suggests that her power is linked to the emotional turmoil and psychological disturbances that accompany fear, violence, and war. In this sense, Mania is not only a force that affects individuals but also an emotional catalyst for broader social and collective behavior, especially during times of conflict. One of the more notable references to Mania in Greek mythology comes from the tales of Heracles. In his labors, Heracles is often depicted as struggling with fits of madness, often brought on by the gods as a punishment or test. One of the most famous instances of this is when Hera, jealous of Heracles' existence as the son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmene, sent Mania to drive him into a fit of madness. In a tragic moment of insanity, Heracles, under Mania's influence, killed his wife and children, believing them to be enemies. This event, known as the Madness of Heracles, became one of the most tragic in Greek mythology, highlighting the destructive consequences of Mania's influence. This example reflects a common theme in Greek mythology: the idea that the gods, despite their immense power and wisdom, could still fall victim to mental and emotional turmoil. The gods themselves were not immune to the kind of madness that the Greeks saw as a fundamental aspect of the human condition. Mania's power over Heracles and other figures in myth shows that even the greatest heroes and gods were susceptible to irrationality, chaos, and uncontrolled emotion. Mania's influence, however, was not always portrayed in such destructive ways. In some interpretations, Mania is seen as a more neutral force, embodying the uncontrollable aspect of the mind that could either be destructive or transformative, depending on how it was channeled. For instance, Mania could also be associated with creative inspiration and intense focus. In certain contexts, madness was seen as a state of heightened perception and insight, allowing an individual to see the world in a way that others could not. This dual nature of Mania, where she could represent both destruction and creation, is a reflection of how the Greeks viewed the human psyche, as complex and capable of both extraordinary creativity and immense destruction. In art, Mania is typically depicted as a wild, chaotic figure, sometimes shown as a personification of madness or frenzy. She may be represented with disheveled hair, an unsteady posture, and a frenzied expression, emphasizing the uncontrollable nature of her power. Such representations are intended to communicate that Mania is a force of nature that cannot be easily contained or understood, much like the irrational forces that can take over the human mind. Though Mania did not have widespread worship or a significant cult following in ancient Greece, her role in myth speaks to the Greeks' understanding of mental and emotional extremes. In a society where rationality, honor, and order were highly valued, the mythological figure of Mania served as a reminder of the fine line between reason and madness and the consequences of crossing that line. The figure of Mania also reflects the Greek understanding of the role of the gods in human affairs. While the gods were often seen as forces of order and structure, they could also disrupt that order by inflicting madness upon mortals and even other gods. In this sense, Mania can be seen as a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked emotions and the unpredictable nature of the human mind. In conclusion, while Mania is not one of the more famous or widely worshipped figures in Greek mythology, her influence on the stories and characters of the mythological world is undeniable. As the personification of madness, she represents the darker and more chaotic aspects of the human psyche, revealing how both mortals and gods could be overwhelmed by irrationality and emotional extremes. Through her connection to fear, terror, and violence, as well as her potential link to creativity and transformation, Mania embodies the complex and multifaceted nature of human emotion and thought. Her mythological presence serves as a reminder of the power of the mind and the potential consequences of its instability, whether destructive or creative.